Oh, echo, echo, oh no. Oh, echo, echo. Oh. Okay. Let me see what's going on. Oh no, I don't see chat very well. It's a bit delayed compared to what I see on Twitch, so I'll stick on Twitch chat. Okay, so hello everyone. It's really nice to see a big crowd gathering for this lesson. And I'll wait one more minute till everyone gathers to get myself comfortable. Can anyone let me know if I sound well, if you can hear me well, and if there's no distortion in my voice, if all good? Good. Good. So here we are. It took me a few days, a few weeks more like, to gather this crowd, and we're now gathered to start learning C# from very beginning. And don't be afraid if you don't know anything. Don't be afraid if you have no clue where to start, or if you don't have anything at all, because this lesson will be all about getting you started and me showing examples of what code looks like. After the lesson, I will help everyone, and I think mentors will help as well to get Visual Studio running. So don't worry if you cannot do it by yourself. We will help you out. So let's start. Okay. View present. I think it's on your end, Royaloff. Yeah. So the agenda of this lesson is that I'll present myself. I will talk about the overall lessons plan of what will happen. Then I'll talk about Visual Studio, main function. Visual Studio, I'll obviously open it and do some live coding there. I'll explain what is a variable. We'll talk about console, read from console, write to console. We'll talk about arithmetics, how do you add variables together. We will format stuff, and we'll play some Kahoot in the end. Kahoot, don't worry if you don't know what it is. I'll give you a link. It's pretty straightforward. So about me, I'm a software engineer with roughly 3 years of professional experience. I have a degree in software engineering in programming systems. I'm from Lithuania, 25 years old, and I'm just very passionate about programming, clean code. I love helping people, I love teaching, and for this reason, 2 years ago, I have founded a programming community called Csharp, and probably most of you have gathered coming from it. So why am I doing this? What's the purpose, and what do I want to achieve by this bootcamp? I really want to share my passion for programming, and I hope that I can inspire people to do programming, to do C#. And I want to not only teach programming like most people do, I want to explain all the reasons why you do what you do, all the things about reasons, about flow, how you come to the actual solution. I don't want to give you raw info, raw code, and just say, do it my way, but I want you to develop your own way of thinking. Being able to have a critical thinking about code is essential, especially since in programming there is so much irrelevant, posts that actually show dirty code, posts that are shallow and don't give you a full picture of what is good and what is bad. So it's really important to have critical thinking in programming. So I'll try to help you develop it. And lastly, my goal is to get you guys together, help you form groups, and do group projects. Because programming is useless unless you put it to practice and get shit done. So we will be doing a group project. I mean, many groups. There will be at least, well, if there are 70 students, then there will be at least 15 groups. So I'll talk about this a bit later. I won't make groups immediately because obviously in every training, not all people attend, and then, you know, some people just lose interest. So roughly after a few weeks or a month, I will start getting more info on the students, on their interests and their skills, and I'll mix students of common interests but different skill levels to form groups, so that we, you know, can have groups which have common interests and want to do the same thing, but at the same time have different skill levels and can help each other out. So about the bootcamp itself, what will we do? And this is roughly lesson topics. There will be 10 chapters, and here are the topics for each chapter. So chapter 1 is fundamentals. You'll start with learning the very basics, and this is basically applicable to every language. You will have to use all those things for every language, so this is universally useful. No matter if you use Csharp, PHP, Java, it's all the same. So we'll talk about variables and console. This is today's topic, today's lesson. What are variables? How do you work with them? How do you print them? How do you read them? Next lesson will be Git. I think it's way too early for Git, but the main reason why I put it so early, because I plan to do automated code reviews and automated tests. It's already set up, but in order for a student to use those two features, they will have to use Git. So if you use Git, you'll have that. Yeah. I'll talk about it later. Don't worry, you won't have everything automated. I mean, there will be a mentor because you are writing code as a human being, and thus a human has to review it as well. So about reviews, I plan to have a mandatory 2-mentor code review in order for your homework to be accepted. So that's a requirement for a homework to be complete. And only the best homework will be put to as an example for lesson material. Okay, so lesson 3, functions and scope. Well, I'll just read this quickly. Functions and scope, debugging, logical statements, collections, iterating, collections, string operations, error handling, fundamentals. Object-oriented programming will be chapter 2. We will start understanding what we're using and why. We'll talk about the 4 pillars of OP, the encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. And we will try to lastly put it all together and compare and do something very, very OP, very object-oriented. So we will also try to learn object-oriented design and how to achieve it. Chapter 3 will be more about C#. Something that is in general considered advanced C# topics. So we'll talk about LINQ, generics, delegates, events, attributes, We will try working with files in JSON and XML formats. XML not so much, JSON is much more important. We'll talk about security and encryption, attributes, custom attributes, and serialization, deserialization. Chapter 4, testing, a very important topic. We will learn how to write automated tests, and we will learn the difference between white box and black box testing. So there are 7 lessons for that. Chapter 5 is solid, and I have no idea why I didn't put any picture for it. My bad. Anyways, solid is basically a collection of best practices, and we'll cover that in chapter 5. And here are the principles, and each principle will be of its own lesson. Lastly, chapter 6, inversion of control. We will use dependency injection in practical application, but about that is way too early to talk about that. So yeah. Chapter 6, desktop UI. In chapter 6, we'll build actual practical applications. As simple as calculator or as complex as, I don't know, personal, financial tracking application. So we will use first VPF, then we'll go into WinForms to compare the two, to have a feel, to understand what the two are. And then finally we'll go into MVVM, about data binding and about how do you open different windows, how do you navigate in between. Each of these lessons will take around 2 hours. Chapter 7 will be design patterns. So we'll go back more to object-oriented programming, but we will cover specific applications. So here you can see the design patterns that we'll cover. 2 patterns a lesson, I think, is fine, except decorator. I think it's a more complex one. Right. Chapter 8, we'll work with databases. We'll cover entity framework and some enterprise patterns. I don't know why I wrote price as price. It should have been with S, but doesn't matter. So those are the topics. Basically, we will be able to save data for persistence. We'll have applications with a state that doesn't disappear after it's rebooted. So let's say you will be able to build a to-do list with a list of tasks that will remain after you reopen it later. So it's all good. Very useful. This is probably you will be working with it if you're doing .NET in some way. Chapter 9 will be async programming, how to do stuff in parallel, how to do stuff without, freezing your application, because there's so many applications that you open or do something and then it says not responding. So we will cover how to avoid not respondingness of a program, how to make it asynchronous, how to cancel asynchronous things, and common problems. And lastly, chapter 9, we will be building web services. We'll be going into web, into HTTP, and we will be talking how to build stuff in web, more focused on web services. So, like I said, after chapter 1, we will start working in groups. Groups will be working on one project per group. It's unrelated to homework, so it's on top of your homework. And groups will be formed by interest and skill. Mix of skill, similar interest, so that you can help each other and work on the same thing that you like. Right, and that's about it about... Oh, no, it's not. View, present. Right, so groups, about stats. So roughly 70 lessons, 10 chapters. And in terms of time, that will be 8 months time. It might be scary, actually, I understand that, but I think it's necessary. And I don't want to be like a scammy BS bootcamp where people spend 2 months and still don't know what is the difference between a class and an object. So with this, you can basically, if you go through all this, you'll be at a level where you can apply for a junior position easily. So it's worth it. And on top of 2 weekly lessons, with 2 hours per lesson, I'll have 1 weekly live code review with roughly 1 hour time. And that will happen on Discord voice channel, and you can guys come and talk in that 1 hour. I'll pick one person and I'll make sure that that person is available for the review. Right, and so far there are roughly 60 students and 10 mentors. And the audience is mostly Reddit, Discord, and it gathered 200 likes total. So let's start. In a nutshell, a program is basically a set of instructions, and that's pretty much it. So instructions can be variables, data, or functions. Basically, functions are things that interact with variables. So you can see here like a completely super high level, in a nutshell kind of view of a program. You have a problem which you put in code, and that code is variables and functions, and those functions get compiled into machine code, and then you have an outcome, a program, a solution to a problem. And examples of functions are those. Don't pay attention too much to it if you don't understand. Basically, you have a name of an instruction that you call and input in brackets that you pass to it. So I say, print me hello, delete this file, and there is a quote missing in the end, so it won't work. Store number 1, refresh, let's say console, clear console, get name, sum 1 and 1. So all those are functions. Functions can either take input, don't take input, or return something and take input. So it's pretty simple. Might not make sense right now, but believe me, it will soon. So, and a variable basically is taking 3 things. A variable needs a type, a name, and a value. And a super high level illustration of what it is. So a function takes a variable and it basically says all sorts of things to do with that variable. In this case, do it, and the variable just runs across the variable a human. So lesson 1, fundamentals in console, begins. Let's go to the Visual Studio and do some live coding, right? Right, I will put this actually, yeah, all the way here. And from complete beginning, this is what you will see when you open Visual Studio. And this might be quite overwhelming at the start, but don't be afraid. Every .NET project is called a solution. So a solution name is here, it's Bootcamp. And I made 2 folders. Those are not necessarily physical folders. for example, they might not exist for me locally on my machine. They're just here in the project to better organize the project. And here you can see a solution. And a solution is basically a massive folder containing other projects. But a solution itself is the full application. And here I have a project. This project is console application. It's console application because if I go to properties, you'll see the output type is console application. And then if I open this, it's a program file. And it's called program.cs, and every C# file will have an extension CS. So right now, my program is made of one file, one script file that I have. It's made of many more files, which are in the .NET framework, .NET Core, but we won't talk much about it. It's outside the scope of this lesson. So what does every program have? Every program needs to start somehow. So every program has a starting point. Every program has a function where it starts. And in console application, that function is called main. So whatever I put here gets run. And whatever isn't here doesn't get run. So my class program, all that you have here, it's basically a defined structure and should not change for console application. It's better not change it. You can change it, but I highly don't recommend. So you have a class program and a main function, your starting point. And we'll start with the classical message by saying hello world to the console. And I can run my program in two ways. I can hit here and run. And you can see it printed hello world as I instructed it. Or I can press Ctrl F5 and do the same. The difference is that if I run it like this, the bar is kind of in the way, right? That's true. I will fix it next lesson. Actually, wait. No, I don't want to move it. I'll mess it up. I'll fix it in the next lesson because I'll totally F it up. So bear with it. I'll move the window slightly below. And this is the button that runs the program. So if I click this, it prints hello world, as you can see here. And if I press Ctrl F5, it will do the same. The difference is that, yeah, I'll change it. And I actually would appreciate suggestions how to change it, because this is my first time actually doing this setup. So yeah. I didn't think that that part would be that important. Yes, so as as Dan mentioned, running with VS menu will put application in debug mode. Running with Ctrl plus F5 will put it in release mode. And what I did just now, I wrote a comment. In C#, comments are with 2 slashes. So if you write 2 slashes, you have a comment. Comments are just text, which will not be taken as an instruction, thus will be skipped. So that's a comment. And now that we have code view, let's get into code more. Right. In C#, multiline comment is this. Comment. If you talk about programming and answer questions, I would appreciate that you don't refer to other languages, because some people are inexperienced, most probably are. So we don't know what C is, we might not know, and you should presume that the person who asked doesn't know. So might as well just say a comment. It starts with and ends with. That's a multiline comment. Now, how do I fix this, I wonder? Maybe like this. Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay. Maybe like this. No space. All right. So this is a single line comment. This is a multi-line comment. More comments. Let's proceed. It's not escape character. I mean, comments don't have escape characters. So a bit out of scope for now. Let's continue. Let's write our very first variable. So variable types, the basic ones are integer. So for whole numbers, 1, so like we said, a variable has to have a type, a name, and a value. A type, a name, and a value. And integers can be positive or negative. 0 as well. Variable cannot have a duplicate name. For example, if I do this and hover over this, it will say, you see it says a local variable number 3 cannot be declared in the scope because it would give a different meaning to number 3, which is already used in parent of current scope to denote something else. So we cannot have duplicate variable names because it messes up our program. And you don't have to remember anything really, because the compiler will complain. If I go to error list, and this is the error view, you'll see the messages. The two types of messages in the error list. It's errors and warnings. Warnings are harmless. It's just dirty code. Errors are things that won't let your code compile. And now somebody asked how to declare an uninitialized variable. If I can declare a variable and it won't be initialized, right? But if I do something like this. Which is, I'm using an initialized variable. Not is declared but never used, and is unassigned. So I get an error, and it says, I'm using unassigned local variable. And I have to assign a variable in order to use it. So what value does this have? And the answer is, I don't know. It simply won't let you run the program with the value not set. So it won't even compile, as you can see. So there is no value. It's not null. It's not 0. There is no value. On contrary, if I do this, so I wrote a static int number 1. Now I will be able to use it because my program as a class will initialize it. Don't keep this in mind. Just a point of interest, nothing else. And we'll give it a default value of 0. Because when I'm using a class always needs to be created and it will set the value there. So integer, int is a type for whole numbers. For example, -1, 0, 1. Now the other type would be float, and that's for numbers with comma in the most simple form. So it's very similar. It can be 1, but the thing is, it can be 2.5, for example, as well. And an interesting thing about numbers, when you define them in Csharp, as you can see, if I don't say anything to a number, by default, it's double. I cannot explain why they chose double as default type, but that's the default. So in order to assign a hard-coded value for a float, you need to say f when it is separated with a dot. And f will mean that it's a float. I didn't need to. So back to the problem that we have. Let's read the error message. Actually, please pay attention to the error messages at all times, because it says why stuff isn't working. And object Julian said because it's impossible to go from float to double, and I don't think that's true. It is possible to go from float to double. But the problem is that if we do so, we lose a fraction. Double is 64-bit. And float, I think, is 32-bit. So if we convert double to float, we lose half of the accuracy fraction. And so we cannot we cannot do it automatically. We need to specify that we want to do so. Because if we accidentally miss it, that might cost us millions of euros or whatever. So that's why it's important, and that's why compiler just doesn't let you do it automatically. Sure, it would be convenient, but at the same time, it might F you up if you are not careful. And that's why we need to provide explicitly and say that it's a float. There are other ways to do so, but I won't show it in this lesson. It will be at the scope of debugging. I'll include the one tip. Anyways, that's float. Just like integers, it can be positive or negative, but the main point is that it's a number with a fraction. We could, by the way, convert this into a float without saying this, because this is an integer. So we can convert integer to a float because we don't lose a fraction. Next. So numbers with a fraction. Whole numbers. So, well, those are examples, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Now, next type. Should I be typing this all into project on my side? No, not really. I'll give you the code, and you don't have to do anything as of right now. After this lesson, you will be given a homework, which is super easy, but main homework is to have a taste of how to run code. That's probably the main homework. So all you will have to do is to get like Chubsman said, I agree. It's just easier if you just watch and try to understand what I'm writing, and if you don't, ask a question, I'll answer. So what will happen after this lesson? I'll give you homework, and after this lesson, you will try to do that homework in your own project. You won't need to do anything advanced, anything difficult. Just do your project in one file, in this one function on your end, on your own pace, and post it when you're done in the homework channel, in the homework submission channel. And then a mentor will check it out. So a question, why not use float, double then? Why not use double? We can use double. But we don't have to. Double means basically double precision. I think 64, and this is 32-bit. So double is double precision compared to float. And double is used when the precision is needed. For basic, simple cases where your numbers are, I don't remember the range, but it's billions. So from minus something like this to plus something like this. So if it's within the range of this number and you don't care about accuracy that much, in that much precision, you can use float. But if you do, use double. You don't want to just use double everywhere because it takes more memory because it's double precision. So floats are faster. They take less space, so you need to have a reason to use double. A reason bigger than just a number with a fraction. So floats are fast, 32-bit, Doubles are slower, 64-bit. Let's continue. Then you have a third one for fractions. It's decimal. And I'll explicitly say that it's for money. It's for money or scientific calculations. So I can do a really long number with decimal. It's M, I think. No, it's D. Nope. Double to decimal. Okay, so it's not that long, apparently, but it's pretty long after comma. Yeah, you see it's just that long of a number. So decimal is explicitly used for numbers and scientific calculations. Sorry, for not numbers, but for money, for currency, for trade. You know, if you people in banks are greedy, right? So if you miss this fraction, they can sue you. And if you multiply this fraction by billions of times, by trillions of times, it starts mattering, you know? That's why use decimal always for money unless you want to go to jail. It's that important. So money, decimal. And I wish I had that much, sure. Right. So the question was, why do you describe it as a decimal and then also have decimal again in the variable value? Because it isn't able to convert it. It says double the target decimal. So that's why I wrote it like this. I could have wrote it with a single letter, but I simply don't remember which letter that was. So I just used this, which I said I would introduce in another lesson, but might as well do it now. So when I wrote decimal in brackets, that means I'm doing casting. So I'm casting from double to decimal. And double is a default number type with fraction. Right. Continue. So really, for numbers, those are pretty much it. For 95% of the time for numbers, you'll be using one of those four. And don't bother with anything else. So it's awesome. You know how to write numbers now. Really, that's simple. There are two important types on top of numbers. We need to somehow store text. So type for storing text is string, and I'll say my name, and that is Kaizenel. So string is used to store text. And it can be, unlike numbers, really long, like really long. You can store, I think, gigabytes of text into a single variable. So I could just copy paste this a million times over and that would be valid. So I will print what I wrote. Not yet, actually. Let's continue with the types. So this is string for storing text. Next, we need to store basically also text, but only a single symbol. So for that reason, we use char. So my first letter in my name is K. So that's how you store a character. So char is short for character. And that's the type. And lastly, one more type. For binary types, logical, true or false, we use Boolean. So bool, that's short for Boolean, and we say, is it first lesson? And the answer is yes, it is. So it's true. Now let's give some meaning to those variables. Chubsman asked, when do you use single quotes and when do you use double quotes? You use double quotes when it's more than one character. And in that case, it's a string. And you use single quotes when it's a single character. So for character, single quotes. For string, double quotes. I'll write that in the comments. And that's the syntax for defining text. Right. So let's continue with giving it more meaning. So my age is 25. My weight is I'll fake it. You don't want to know my weight? My height is I'll fake it. I said I'll fake it. My balance is totally true. And if I run, it will just say my name for now. Kaizenel. So let's recap quickly what we did. We now know how to define variables, and we now know basic types of variables. Pretty much all types of variables. There won't be more than that, really. I mean, there will be, but for primitives, for variables that don't have complex objects like a class, that's pretty much all you'll work with for 99% of the time. 95% maybe. Anyways, so you have whole numbers, and that's integer, so it cannot have a fraction. It can be positive or negative. Then you have floats. 32-bit size variables which store numbers with a fraction. Fast, but not precise. Then you have doubles. That's the default type for a number with a fraction, because you see we didn't need to put f explicitly. And we store it with 64 bits, double the precision that float has. And lastly, we have decimal, and decimal is the most accurate, but less often used explicitly for currency, for money, and for scientific calculations, for where accuracy is of utmost importance. 128 bits. I should write that. And then we have two types for text: string for multiple characters and char for single character. Multiple character variables need to have double quotes for defining the variable that they store, the value that they store, and character needs to have single quotes. This example will be pushed to Git. Yes, all the lesson material will be accessible. All of it. Slides, Kahoot, this code, video, all of it is going to be stored somewhere. Is C# camel case? The answer is no. C# uses both Pascal case and camel case. For type names, we use Pascal case. For methods, for functions, we use Pascal case. For variable names, we use camel case. For those who don't know, Pascal case, first letter is non-capital, and all other words start with capital letter. And for camel case, oh, sorry, I mixed the two. Abort. Wait, did I? No, I didn't. It's good. Yeah, I did. Okay. First letter is capital and all others start with capital. First letter is non-capital. Capital. Right. So, yes, sorry. So this variables are using camel case, and it's like someone mentioned, they said it's preference, and they are partially true. There are team conventions which might use a different naming system, and it doesn't matter. You can have variables written with underscores, with capital and other letters, but you're not allowed to use special symbols like exclamation mark or a minus. You cannot have a minus in between, but because then it understands that you're trying to minus those two variables together and they don't exist. You cannot use special symbols like those in a variable name because they're reserved already. They have a meaning in the language. However, you are allowed to use underscore, numbers, and that's about it. So capital, non-capital letters. So I will explain. For variable names, we can use A, Z, 1, 0, 9 underscore. That's it. So to dumb down my last statement, okay, I won't read that. It's a detail. Continue. So to summarize, we define variables, name them. We define variables by giving them a type, a name, and a value. If you don't have a value, it has to be defined eventually, otherwise it will throw if you use it. And if you don't use it, you might as well just remove it, like here, and it'll give you a suggestion. So for variable names, we can use letters from non-capital A all the way to capital Z, from 0 to 9, and underscore. All other symbols are not allowed. Well, one more is allowed, but nobody uses it. At is also allowed. But don't use at, so I won't write it because I think it's a smell. Next. So I'll delete. Next. So the types that we now learned are integer for whole numbers, float for numbers with a fraction, small and fast, double with numbers with double precision compared to float, slightly slower, and numbers with very high precision, decimal, mostly used for currency, for money, char for single character, and string for multiple characters. So lastly, logical, true or false. So is it last lesson? Hell no. So true, false. Now we defined a bunch of variables. How do we use them? We already used my name. How do we combine them? How do we work in union? How do we put stuff together? How do we add stuff together? How do we take one variable from another? How do we do arithmetics? So let's move on to another part. Right, so to add two variables together, you would do something like this. So what do I have? 1 plus 5. I'm adding two numbers together just like I would use a calculator. 1 plus 5 will be 6. Now, I can say that my sum is doubled, so I can say sum plus sum, and that's double sum. Or I can say sum times double version 2, which is sum times 2. So that will be 12, that will be 6, that will be 12. Also, I didn't mention at the end of every instruction, so instruction being function call or defining a variable, you have to put a semicolon. And this will tell the compiler that your instruction is done. That, okay, here's the instruction and now I need to evaluate it and move on to the next instruction. And you tell it by putting a semicolon. If I put it here, it will work, and that is fine, but it's just bad practice because how readable is the program if I put it like this? It's a one-liner, right? It's so much, like, way less code. Like, great, but I cannot put it in comments, so it's not quite the same. But yeah, you get the point. I mean, this code is not readable. It's almost obfuscated. We don't write code like this. We try to write code for humans first and machines after, because otherwise it won't be maintainable. Nobody will want to work with it. Right. One more thing that I forgot to mention. You can have variables defined using a var keyboard. So like a generic name, a generic type keyword for a variable. So if I say var and then variables done, and say variables done, it will try to predict, and it will always be the same result for the same value that will evaluate to a certain type. So here you can see if I hover over var, it's a string. If I say something like time now and 10 for 10 p.m., right? It will now be int. It predicts a type based on what I put in assignment. So var is int in this case, and if on the right side it's a string, it knows it's a string. If on the right side it's int, it knows it's int. So it knows what the type is in var based on the value I give it. And that's why if I do something like unknown, it won't work, because it will say I cannot initialize a variable. I cannot define a variable which value I don't know. Now the question is, when should you use var over explicit type? First, I'll summarize. So var can be used as an alternative to define a variable with a type. So when should it be used? And the answer is preferably most of the time. But this is a very sensitive topic. For example, at my workplace, we always write variables with explicit types, because sometimes you might have something like this. So a function called nonsense, and you don't know what it returns. And if you write var, it will be very hard to understand what this function returns. So you will need some extra effort to understand what it returns. And in those cases, you should use it explicitly. In other cases, you should use it var, just that, because variable types are usually longer than just int, string, char. It's quite long, and often we don't care. So we can just write var, because in the end, it's this strong type remains. Right. And like Object Julian said, you can simply hover what the type will be, but you don't want to have that little extra effort when you're reading stuff. Because in programming, you spend 95% of the time reading code and 5% writing code. Nevin asked, is it a time saver? And the answer is yes, it is. Time saver for reading code. Will we cover structs in later streams in chapter 1? Yes. Not in chapter 1 though. I think in chapter 3. When we talk more about C#. Like C# specifically. Right, continue. We have basic arithmetics with obvious types. We can add two numbers together. We can add two variables together because, I mean, a variable is just a named value that can change. So as you can see here, I can do something like this. And now it's 24. And as a proof of it being 24, I'll print it. Yeah. Okay. It's not 24. Can somebody tell why? 6 plus 6 is 12. And why is this not 24? Because it is supposed to be sum x2 times 2 to be 24. So now you can see it's 24. Yes. I'll actually group it like this. Like a very small detail, but now I just removed a space, an empty line, not a space, an empty line between the two. And the reason why I did so is to improve the readability slightly more. Like in code, the closer things are to one another, the more related they are supposed to be. That's a clean code convention. And so when you read stuff like this, I know that this is a fragment of code that was responsible by last part of variables. And this bit was an illustration of summing of arithmetics. So we can add any two numbers together. So I'll continue. Yeah. Is stream laggy? Can anyone confirm? I'll continue. So seems fine. Okay, good. Awesome. So what we can do with numbers, we can add two integers together. Sum of int, sum more. So we can add two integer and a float together. And the type will be integer and double together. And the type will be, it keeps on changing. type is single. Okay, whatever. Then we can add decimal on top. So some more float, some more decimal. So some more float plus decimal 1.00001. Okay, I cannot add those two together. Nice. Because I need to convert this to decimal as well. Don't worry about messing, adding two different types together for numbers, because in most cases it's not a detail that you should care too much. The compiler will scream, so it will remind you of it. Right, done. So this is for numbers. And if I run this, you'll see the total sum. So it was 24 plus that, and it just cut the fraction. If I run it again, so 0.0000001 was too little, and just cut it. If you make var and add an integer and a string, would it make a struct? No. A struct is non-primitive, so the answer is no. Now let's add more interesting cases. So for text, so introduction, greetings, hello world, and my name, Kaizenel, full greeting is Kaizenel is my name, so my name plus hello world plus greetings. And the output will literally be two texts put together. So Kaizenel, hello world. Now, we don't want stuff like this. We don't want text to be like without spaces. We want to be properly sophisticated with the way we define our grammar, right? So here would be a fix. So we add to my name a comma, a space, and then finish it with hello world. So if I run it now, you can see Kaizenel, hello world. Simple. So when you sum two different types, will the output be the bigger type used? Yes. I mean, if it wasn't that way, you would lose a fraction, and that's too much of a risk. So compiler doesn't let you, compiler helps you with that. Compiler is your friend. So that's for text, basic case. Now, an interesting case is for characters. What happens if we take A and B and sum it together? Does anyone know? Right, I forgot to add one more number. The question was, are there 64-bit ints in C#? And the answer is yes, there are. And that is 64-bit int. And this is 32-bit, I think, right? Yes. And this is 64. So long light years is let's continue. The character corresponding to the ASCII code summed. Yes, so if I say char A is A and char B is B, and if I sum, so if I say A and B is A plus B, and I say A and B, so if I sum A and B, because it's an int, like others note, like the other person note. So it sums the ASCII code values of the two. In other words, if I say A is, and then cast it to int, and then do the same for B, and do the same for B plus plus because I defined it one line below, so it should be here. Good. So in this line, if I run this, you can see space. You can see A is 97, and that's ASCII code of A. B is 98 because that's its ASCII code. And by putting A plus B as characters, since I cannot add two characters and get a character back, because it would be a string, the most reasonable thing to do would be adding the ASCII codes of them. So you have 195 ASCII codes added. So it's pretty cool. Like, you know, if you want to be like something like, what is letter? What letter goes after what symbol goes after W? Like, what symbol goes after W in ASCII table? And the answer is it's sorry, after Z. So how do you calculate it? You say after Z. So what happens after Z? You say that you convert Z into integer. Sorry, you simply say that you take Z and add another symbol to it. And I think you take Z non-capital, not sure. I couldn't, so I need to convert both to int. Oh, sorry, I messed up. So I take both as an integer and I then convert them to char. I cannot convert them to char that easily. How to convert string to char? Int to char, I don't know, I don't remember. Though I don't want to do it. I'm super late to the first lesson. Will I be able to watch it? Yes, you will. Convert to char. Okay. So ASCII to char is convert to char. So like this, I can give the answer. What symbol goes after Z? And the answer is. What's it called? Broken bracket. Yeah, so open bracket. Okay, sorry. Left bracket. Okay. 50 names of brackets. Nice. Okay, so we can add chars and char, int and char, etc. We can add even float and char, but that really doesn't make sense, so I won't show an example. Back to this one. What happens if we add we can add strings and other primitives to a string. So what happens if we add 1 to a string? What do you guys think? What would the compiler do? And from now on, I'll be using var. For students, for beginners, I recommend using explicit types to get used to understanding what the type is. Yeah, it will be concatenated. So if I do full greeting times, it will be full greeting plus 1. And if I do full greeting times, it will say full the thing and give, you see, 1 at the end. So for primitives, adding to string will just concatenate it. Yeah, they all become string. Cool, right? So done. Summing strings, numbers. That's basically done. So recap, we can sum primitive types quite easily. So we can sum integers, we can sum floats, and if we sum a float and integer, it becomes the one bigger type. So I mean, I don't want to lose a fraction, so compiler keeps the fraction by converting the result into the bigger, more complex type that was added to in general. And right, we sum the two together. Two numbers and the result is bigger than the type. It will be an exception. Yes, it's a great question. Yeah. I know, guys, it's a lot of info. but it's pretty, I mean, it should be pretty not too hard because we don't go into functions and it's just variables, and you don't need to remember about longs, doubles, and decimals because you'll be using only ints, floats, and strings, pretty much. So that's all you need to remember. And you need to remember that you can add a string. Like if you add anything to a string that is a number, a character, or another string, you will get a string back. And that if you add anything to an ASCII, more like if you add numbers or another symbol to a character, you'll get an ASCII code back, an integer. That's pretty much all you need to remember, and that's not much. Yeah, there will be a video. Well, to be honest, when I was learning, I treated everything as a float, and I think it was due to because I got to C# after C++, and for some reason I remember in C++ I was always using float. I don't know if float is any special in C++. I don't remember anymore, but yes. All right, so ignore the part about float. Just use a double by default. Okay. No, don't start with C++. It was just a reference, an example. C++ is difficult, it's lower level, and you need to know more things to do simple stuff. Yes, C# is easier in general for the same things, the exact same things. Let's continue. Now we know how to add two numbers together, numbers or variables in general. We need to multiply two variables now, multiply or divide. And the special cases, of course, you cannot divide one character from another or take away one string from another. Doesn't make sense. You can take one character from another. So let's give you an illustration of our main. Hello world. Hello world. World. So if I do this, will I be able to minus two strings? And the answer is no. So I can concatenate two strings, but I cannot subtract a string from another string, simply because it doesn't know how do I do it. Do I take the first or the last part of it? Doesn't know. So it doesn't work that way. Also, what happens if the symbols are different? Doesn't know what to do. So we cannot subtract one string from another. Next, can we subtract characters? And this is really cool. So how many So if somebody asked you what's the difference in ASCII chart between A and A capital and A non-capital, you could simply say something like A minus A, whoops. And the answer will be, whoops, What's wrong? It's already defined. Where did I define A? Here, okay. So if I minus the two together, it's 32? Okay. And if it was B, just playing around, also B exists, okay. So I'll keep it A. Yeah, so the difference between A and B is 1. So if the question was how many letters are there in alphabet, you could simply do something like, so, okay, not mentors, not experienced people, how many letters are there in alphabet by calculating it in code. The most simple way to calculate it. But in code, what would you do? In code, in character arithmetics, to calculate it. Yeah. So I say Z minus A. $25. Who failed the question, or who was that said 25 or 26? Yes. Busted. Okay, let's continue. So how many letters in alphabet? Done. We have 10 minutes to wrap up the coding part. So I have multiplication, right? Multiplication, addition, multiplication and division. Multiplication is quite boring. Like, you cannot multiply strings. So you can only multiply and divide numbers. That's a rule. So, I mean, well, you can in a for loop or something like that, but Python is weird, you know, so I'm not complaining. We shouldn't be complaining about that, right, guys? Unexpected stuff happens. Anyways, so we can only divide numbers. And there are basically two very critical cases that you need to remember. If I say something like this, and this is a mistake that 100% of you will do, 100%, 100%. I'm guaranteed that in your career as a developer, in your experience, you will do this mistake and you'll spend at least 15 minutes figuring out what the fuck is wrong. So I'm showing you this mistake. Pay close attention. If I do something like this, the result will be the result will be, no, it's not about float or double, because the result is 0. 1 divided by 100 is 0. Welcome to programmer's world. Why is it 0? Yes, and we forget about this. So the crazy thing is that people miss sometimes is that if I write 0.0 here with a fraction, the result will be 0.01, as it should. So be very careful with the way you divide numbers, because 0 and 0.01 is a huge difference. And this will cause you a headache. I can guarantee that, as it costs for many other developers. So be careful with the way you divide numbers. And I shouldn't go deeper. Multiplication is quite simple. So you can multiply numbers together. So I'll put it in the same line. So if I say if I say 100 hundredths, so I say var 100 is 100, 100 times 100. That's multiplication. I don't know why I put F. Hundred hundredths, amazing, I know. Oh crap. So 100 hundredths is 10,000. And it's quite simple. I mean, it can be a float, doesn't matter. It can be any number can be multiplied from any other number. So yes, that's one more thing for this topic. We can, so I should also comment this. Dividing an integer from an integer ignores the fraction part. Very important to note. And dividing an integer from a number with a fraction keeps the fraction part for the same reasons, because it becomes the more complex number, the bigger number. And lastly, so values that don't change should be used as a constant. And in C# we can define constants with const keyword. So if I say const, what is a constant number? What doesn't change? Const pi. Okay. So I don't want to write pi unless anyone remembers 10 digits of it at least. Okay, good. E is a good number. Oh wait, that's not E, that's pi. Crap. Oh my god. Okay, const double pi. So if I try something like this, it will say no can do, because one side is a constant and the other side is an integer, and I cannot add anything to a constant. So if something doesn't change in value, use a constant. And use a constant when you have formulas or other things. Basically, instead of magic values, use named constants. I'll talk about this later in more detail. For now, just know that it's an option. You won't really need to use it for starters. I forgot one more thing. We can read and write from console. I showed how you write to console. How do you read from console? So you read from console like this. You say string input, and then you say, or I'll be more precise, name, and then you say console dot read line, and you say Kaizenau, and it will read the whole line that I inputted, and you say hello again Kaizenau. I mean name, not Kaizenau. So last demo. Okay, that's bullshit. Yes, so you read line. Yes, that's basically it. So it doesn't say anything, but you see this is blinking, means it's trying to read something. So I read my name. And you see it just outputted what I inserted. Hello again, Kaizenau. Of course, it would be much better to say something like input your name. And notice that I wrote I don't think it will matter. But anyways, if you write right, it won't put a new line. It won't print a new line, so it will remain the new line. But I'm not sure if it will. Yeah, you see, I can read my name in the same line as the text, but it will read my name with without input your name string. So I'll do it again, and you can see input your name, and I wrote Kaizenau, and hello again Kaizenau. So to summarize, now you know how to define variables. You need type, name, value. If a variable is undefined, it cannot be used. It will give an exception. So you define it, otherwise delete it. For numbers, for whole numbers, we have ints, longs, and more, but just the most common one, use int. For numbers with fraction, we have floats, doubles, and decimals, but most commonly use a double, as it is a default one. For strings, we have names. For text, you have strings and characters. Strings are multi-symbol text, and character is a single symbol text. And you have Boolean type, which is either true or false. Lastly, you can define variables with a var keyword, which is basically a lazy way of letting a compiler guess your type. We write to console with console write line or console write. it's quite self-explanatory. We can add any two numbers, strings, or characters together. And adding characters together gives ASCII. And adding character to integer gives ASCII as well. We found a smart solution how to calculate numbers in the alphabet using ASCII chart. And we covered a point of interest for division, that if you divide 1 from 100, it will be 0 if you don't put a 0.0 in there. So that's why be careful with var and with this. Even if you write float, it will be the same because it gets converted only to float afterwards. And lastly, const, a variable that doesn't change its value. And reading input from console with read line. So console write line, hello again, name. That's pretty much it. And now a little surprise for you guys. Aren't you hyped? Surprise, surprise, surprise. Where is the hype? Hype, hype, hype. Anyone? Hype? Hype, hype, hype. Yes, hyped. Good. So, please go to this website. Stop with the hype. Enough hype. Go here. Stop it. Go there. No hype, guys. No hype. What have I done? Oh shit, did I close it? I didn't. Okay. So, surprise is Kahoot. I'll keep on spamming as well. Please click the link. I'll give 2 minutes for everyone to get there. Calm down. Enough. Wait, calm down. Wait for everyone. Yes, you need a pin. Here you go. Pin, pin, pin. It's competitive. So, the thing is, this is a single choice quiz. A single choice quiz. And time matters. So not only the correct answer matters, but how fast you select it matters. What the fuck? What's your name, Scrub Dev? Scrub Dev. Just type the pin in and you should be able to start. 1 more minute. Okay, 30 seconds and we'll start. I see some mentors here too. It's not really fair, but that's okay. It's not about competing. Remember this. It's not about who's first and who's last. It's about checking how much of the lesson you understood. So that's all. And this is my very first Kahoot quiz. So I might have effed something up. So yeah. Let's start. The same variable can be used multiple times. True or false? Okay. Okay, next question. You cannot change the value of a variable. Yeah. Next. Ratio is leading. Const is used for variables with a constant value. Is it true or false? I think I should put more time next time, but okay. Local variable must be defined with a value. This is a bit different question. But hurry up, type. It's a tricky question, actually. I mean, it can be defined without the value, but then there is no meaning. There will be double the time now. Double the time with multiple questions. A single answer in this one. Yeah, next time, guys, I will give more time. So, a name, value, and type is what is needed for a variable. Description is optional. It's a comment. A description for variable is a comment, optional. And also, don't look at my screen. Look at your Kahoot. You don't have to look at stream to do this Kahoot. Next. Which one of the following can be added together? All of the above. As mentioned, number plus string is a concatenated string. The Kahoot doesn't give values on answers, only buttons. Oh, yes, sorry, okay. Oh, okay. In that case, next time I'll give double the time. I see, it's problematic. Sorry, guys. Which of the following cannot be subtracted? Awesome, good job. Next, FetX Deuv is leading. Second is Ujabaya, and Resho is the third one. var A is 1 divided from 2. What is that equal to? Clock is ticking. Yes, guys, 0.5 would be if it's slightly different, if it was a float. So var A is 2. What type is A? And I know delay is way too long and I messed it up. Wow! Well done. Double A is 2.5 times 2. What is A type of double? It's way too short, I can't see now, but it's a good experience for me. I'll fix it next time. Var A is 1 divided from 2.0. What is A equal to? Yeah, double the time. Awesome. 7 people who answered wrong, please read up. What will be printed to console? We have hello and world as variables, and we add the variables together. And in the console, it gets printed as not a string. Will we see it as a string in the console? We'll see just text. So that's a trick question. And 12 people who selected hello world, well, we won't see the quotation marks because that's just for a variable. And the winners. Hype, hype, hype. Hype. Hype, hype, hype. Hype, hype, hype the winner. Resho, Bootcamp. Everyone, Resho, Bootcamp. Sorry guys for those who had lag and for the lack of time. Next time I'll definitely account for that and make the time much longer. Sorry, again. Well done, Rachel. And thank you everyone for this awesome first lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. And the same style will be next lessons. The next lesson will be about Git. We'll talk about how to work with Git, how to do code versioning. We'll talk how to work with Git in Visual Studio specifically, how to fix mistakes that you did, how to work off multiple versions of code simultaneously, and I will give an introduction tutorial and example how will homeworks work from that lesson and forth. Next lesson on Wednesday. So we'll have 2 weekly lessons. One on Saturday and one on Wednesday. Same time, 9 p.m. GMT +2. No homework? Nope. There is homework. There is homework. Is everyone on Discord? Just making sure. Is there anyone who's not on Discord? if there is anyone not from Discord, Csharp in, then please link the Discord server. Actually, you can find the Discord in the stream description if you click the Csharp logo. So click the Csharp logo and you'll be invited to the community with thousands of other developers, some like you and some very experienced, who will help you. So in there, I'll post the homework. Just in case, I'll post the homework in Twitch chat as well. So here's the homework. I posted it on Discord, and I'll post it here in chat, just in case. Very simple. Just reading console input and outputting it based on the example below. So it's reading from console, writing from console, variables, and division. Easy peasy, I know. So the first homework will not be reviewed, but it will be reviewed with the second homework. So by Wednesday, please have your homework done. And when you go to Wednesday's lesson and work on actual homework, well, your homework will be to put what you have now into Git and then submit a pull request for a mentor to review. That will be your homework for Wednesday after the lesson. So I'm just going ahead of time. Oh. Okay. I'll put the countdown. I'll put countdown for the next stream right now. New countdown. Csharp Bootcamp Lesson 2 Git. And it will be on Wednesday 21:00:00. So here you go. Just married theme, okay. Wedding? Birthday, wedding, okay. Oh, just married is on the left. Just married. I was about to ask which left. Oh no. So it was right. Oh, okay. Yes, okay. Oh no, it reset. What the hell? Why did it reset? What the hell? Weird. Wedding countdown. Okay. So day 15th, 21:00:00 Willingness create countdown. That's so annoying that this symbol isn't functional. Second, I need to get a fake symbol to make it work. Where was it? All right. I need this C, a special C. Okay, good. Hacked the website. Okay, I'll read the chat now. Good night. Okay, good night, guys. Until next wedding. Yes, boys, see you next at the wedding. Csharp getting all married. Yes. I hope you all have your tux and dress ready. Indeed. Yeah. Will take me half an hour. Okay. Must be expensive. I attend weddings in sweatpants. Me too, by the way. How do I know what type to use for the homework? Can you explain the question? So whatever makes sense to you, really. I mean, if you have doubts, if you have questions, always feel free to ask in either the questions channels or the BC discussion channel. Really, don't be afraid. And for the answer to your question, just anything really will work. As long as it works, as long as it does what it's asked. This, for now, just have a mindset of getting the task done. So have your own thinking and choose a variable that you think is the best. And Visual Studio or Visual Code, either is fine, but when we work with desktop UI, please use Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code. And again, I'll spam it in the chat. That's the next date. And homework, once again, I'll spam it too. Okay. What else? So next lesson, Git. Material, what I did. So I'll push this all to Git. So lesson 1, material. Push. Okay, and this is, if I refresh, this is the code. I'll make a poll for a theme. If you guys really dislike the color, if you hate the blue theme, I'll change. Yes, gentleman's theme. It suits my theme, my banner, guys. It suits my banner. No dark hype. Don't hype for dark theme. What the hell? Everyone judges me for using dark. AKA bleach theme. So I gave you code. I should give you slides too. Slides. The Reddit said GMT +2. And plus there was a literal countdown, so nowhere asked any reason you're not using Dark Reader, and the answer is because I'm a pleb. So no reason, I guess. It's funny though. I mean, when I was in university, I would think that people, like, I would look at at over people's shoulder, and if I saw a laptop with Visual Studio in black theme, like I would automatically presume that that person is like good at programming. Like, oh shit, he has black theme, he's good. And really, if you prefer, I'll change. Hashtag facts, right? 30% productivity increase just by changing your theme color. What else to say? Yeah, I think that's it for the lesson, for all that I wanted to say. I think I fit in the time as I wanted to, and I think it was good stuff. Roughly those who said would come, like 70. Well, actually, I think roughly everyone came, because like 70% said they wouldn't make it on time. And yeah. So, two things. The video and yeah, the video. Two things, the video and video. So today's video will be left on Twitch for 14 days, and it will include all the stream alerts. But another video with some editing will be without all the Twitch stuff. So in YouTube, I'll export a video without Twitch stuff, and with post-stream discussion like this one, just focused on lesson material. And we have a suggestions box. And if you like something, if you want a suggestion to be made, feel free to put stuff there. And always welcome to have discussions, questions asked, like Erlington said. Yeah. So thank you all for watching. If there are no more questions, I will end the stream. So see you guys next time on Wednesday. Bye bye.